I'm Dan from Maptek, and today I'm really excited to share with you the new modelling manager we've added in geological 2023. So in geological 2023, we've introduced what's called the modelling manager. So think of this as your one-stop shop for modelling. At the moment, it's limited to just vein models and vein networks, which is a collection of veins. But in the future, we're going to add sort of intrusive style implicit models and stratigraphy and all sorts of other modeling methodology into here. So like the domain manager, it's going to open up with a default modeling group. So I can rename this, for example, and I might call it Thor Veins. Right, so what we get when we create that is under the modeling container, we get a Thor Veins container, right? So our global controls section of the panel, global settings or controls for all the models within this modeling group. So a bounding solid is mandatory. So I've got one that I've made earlier, which if I load my drill holes and my bounding solid, you can sort of see that it covers my area nicely. Now, if you don't have one, you can create one using the Create Solid Extent tool, which will work off the selection, which is what I used here. Otherwise, you can use the Domain MCF block model definition tool, and this panel will accept a block model definition as part of that. So if you're doing it for you're going to use this for estimation, and if you've already got a BDF defined for the block model that you're going to use, you can use that in here. Optionally, you can give it a topography and things will get cut against that. So I've got one in this case, so I'm going to use it. We have a default triangle size that we can use for the entire model or for every model. So in this case, the default's 5, but there's always, I recommend setting this to something that's reasonable for your drill spacing. So if your drill holes are 50 meters apart, you might be able to get away with a 25 meter triangle size, which will make things run a lot faster. But it's on a model by model basis. So this will be a global setting, but you can overwrite the triangle size for each vein individually, which I'll show you in a bit. We've got a global snapping setting that we can use. So the default's going to be none, or you can use drill holes only, CAD only, drill holes and CAD, or you can use the custom, which is going to let you manually pick it for each surface that you model. I'm just going to go with drill holes only. Unless I've got surveyed data, I'm less likely to want to snap to my CAD data. So my drill holes are more trustworthy, so that's what I'm going to use. Next, we can move on to the surface models section of the panel. So think of this like where we store each of the parameters for each of the models that we want to run, and also the younging of each of these is the chronology component. So little green button I can press up here, and I can add, in this release, only veins or a vein network. In the future, as I said, we're going to add more to this. And we've also limited, for this release, you can only select from a domain group. Again, in a future release, we will be able to add just from CAD or manually define how we want to create one of the surfaces. So first thing I'm going to do a vein, and obviously I picked the domain group, which I've already made. I'm not going to model the entire domain group. That'd pull everything in at one level. I just want to pick my dike at this particular point, and that's going to come in as a vein. Then I'm going to add a vein network, and I will call this one veins. And I'm going to untick dike and TQ3 A and B, pull everything else in as a vein network. So you can see now that they've been pulled in as a network. I'm also going to add in TQ3 as a network, because in this data set, TQ3 has been modeled as a bifurcated vein. So I've got TQ3A and B. The network's got to have a unique name, so I couldn't use TQ3A, it's got to be TQ3. And you can see now I've got two networks at the same level. Now I can just use my middle mouse button, I can select TQ3 and I can drag and drop that into veins. You can see now that kind of puts it at that same level as the other veins in there, and I can shuffle that up if I like. So you can nest these as deep as you're brave enough to go. Obviously the deeper you go, the more complicated it gets to think things through and manage interactions and whatnot, but 2 levels isn't too bad. The difference between a vein and a vein network is a vein network allows me, if I click on the row and press this edit button up here, you can see it's the network parameters for TQ3. So TQ3 is a bifurcated vein. So we've got 2 options for how we treat each of the veins within a vein network. You can either maintain separate solids or you can merge to a single solid. So the merge to a single solid option is great for bifurcated veins because you can make 2 separate vein models of the individual limbs and then you can merge them into a single solid after that. So I'm going to say TQ3 in this case truncates against the hanging wall of TQ3B. All right. Otherwise, I know from making this data set that for my overarching vein network, I want to maintain separate solids, but I want TQ10 to truncate against the hanging wall of TQ9 because they do kind of butt up against each other. So I want to make sure that they don't overlap. Right, so those are my network settings. Now I can set my vein settings, right? So modeling parameters for dike, I can select the row, click edit. Now, because I've already set my global control for snapping to my drill holes, you can see that's already snapped for me and I can't change that in here, right? If I used custom, I could. Again, you can overwrite the default triangle size if you want, untick that and change it. And you can see it's obviously picked dike from that domain group for me. Now, CAD works a little differently in the modeling manager than it does in the standalone vein modeler. I can't drag and drop CAD into here. And the reason for that is under this CAD container, we get a modeling manager CAD added. And then for each item, or for each modeling group, we have a container. Within that, you have an item for each item in the chronology list. All right, within that, each item has containers that relate to what you want to add data to for that particular thing, right? So if I close this panel, let's say I wanted to add a bounding limit or a boundary limit polygon for my dike. Right, I can right click on this and I can say set as current layer. If I start digitizing under my create menu and start digitizing a polygon, this isn't going to make sense, but if I do that, you can see that's obviously gone in there. Then if I open up my edit panel and go to my extent limits, you can see it's automatically picked up that polygon. So if I went relimit to polygon, it's going to use that polygon for me. Also, if I put stuff in the internal relimit polygons container, it's going to automatically pick that up. And anything in the hanging wall, footwall, or the trend or the guide surface is automatically going to get picked up and used. So if you don't want to use it in part of the modeling, don't have it in one of those containers or move it out of those containers. So anything in there is going to get used automatically. So I can set my parameters for my dike. So I'm going to use relimit polygons for everything, but I've already got ones that I've made, so I'm going to shuffle all those through in a second. But everything else, I'm not using CAD in this one, you can see. But controls, I'm going to use these inside surface options for all of my domains. Right, so I'm going to set this first. And I might make my minimum thickness 0.3. If you're not sure what that is, have a look at the vein modeler video that I did. Obviously we've got that. We're going to use a relimit polygon for everything. Now I'll use vein trend normal. And I'm going to set 60% as my domain overlap ratio. Okay, so now I've set that for that. I might actually want to use those same settings for everything, and this is good to do at this stage because I haven't sort of made any vast changes to them. So I can use the import option, pick my dike, hit OK, and you'll see this TQ11. Obviously it hasn't changed the CAD stuff because it's just using its own. Obviously it hasn't picked up a relimit polygon. All right, so I've done my dike. I'm going to go and shuffle all my CAD data in that I've made. Right, so now that I've shuffled all my CAD data in, I'm going to use relimit polygons for everything. You can see it's already picked that up. And so I'm going to select all my other items. So I'm just using control. And I'm going to import my settings from my dike which then should mean if we go and have a look in TQ10, for example, extent limits is using a relimit polygon, but it's using what it's picked up in the specific container. You'll also notice if we look at TQ3A, it's got hanging wall data because I've got a hanging wall line in here. All right, so it's automatically picked that line 2 up for me. Now, because I've just used drilling data, I can't turn that snapping on, so I'd have to change that to custom if I wanted to do that. Once I'm happy with that, I'm going to run my vein models for each of these. So when the networks are turned on, it's going to run each of the models, well, everything in this list, all the vein models are going to get run first. And then when we've got everything being run in a network, the network rules are going to get applied after that. All right, so I'm going to run that. Right, so now that that's run, in here we've got this surface models container which matches up for this surface model, right? And each of my items, so for my dike, which is a vein, it's got all the outputs that you'd get from the vein modeler, right? So the points, the original surface, and then the process surface. So you can sort of go through and you can kind of see if you've got any problems that have happened with any of your models, you can kind of go and investigate and see what might be going on. What we also get is we've got this vein network. So then all the individual veins within that, right? Same sort of settings in there. But I've also got this TQ3 network. So that's got its own individual veins. But then what you get for each network is you get this kind of network solid. So as part of that, you've got the individual components that you get. Now, if you just leave them, if I just left this edit option as maintain separate solids, you would just have the 2 solids. But because I've used merge to a single solid, I've got a single combined TQ3 solid, which if we sort of look at that, you can see this is my bifurcated vein where it sort of merges into the hanging wall, or A merges into the hanging wall of B nicely. And obviously as part of my larger vein network, I get this vein solids output, which is all the results of everything. So I'm getting rid of my ridiculous polygon. So we've got everything output according to the controls that we used, right? Obviously we've also got a dike solid up there. That's just for my network, but what I do get under this geology surfaces is everything created in this surface models tree here, right? So each of those outputs from my vein models basically, and my vein network output. So what we can do after that, now I can turn all of these off. I don't need to run them now, but what is important is when we add the outputs of these to the geology model, it's going to Boolean each of the shapes based on their relative age. So this is our chronology tree. So my youngest is going to be at the top of my tree and the oldest is going to be at the bottom. So you can shuffle things around as you need to. But my dike is younger than everything else. So I've put that at the top, which means that when I add them to the geology model, or I add everything to the geology model, anything that's older than my dike or anything that's below my dike, if the two overlap, the dike is going to cut through that vein. So the vein will get booleaned out basically by the dike. So I can include these in my vein model. And you've also got the option to create an undomained solid, which will basically take everything that's made here and it will move it from the bounding box that you've provided. So I might turn that on just for interest and see what it looks like. Right, so obviously making the undomained solid is the slowest part of this process because it's a lot bigger and there's a lot to cut out of it. So that's why it's there as an option for running as a vein model. You may not need to use that, you may not want that, you might just want your vein solids. Once we start working on stratigraphy and other bits and pieces, it'll probably be quite handy to have that there because you'll get leftover sections. What we get once we've run that, so if I remove my geology surfaces, so that's basically everything from this geology surfaces is what goes into the geology model. So we've got everything in here, right? You can see the difference now is when we run through the geology model, if we've given it a topography, everything will get clipped to that topography as part of the geology model process. So my dike's been clipped to that. And if I hide my dike, you can see because my dike was at the top and it cuts through all of my veins, it's booleaned out each of my veins where it cross cuts. Now if we want to have a look at the undermained, this is sort of what we get here. So you get everything booleaned out of it. So it's all the leftover bits and pieces. So essentially it means that if we've got everything in there, we've got everything sort of, all the space is taken up inside that whole section. And that's the modeling manager. You can see how powerful and useful this can be, and I hope you enjoy using it as much as I have been already. So thanks for watching, and I'll catch up with you in the next video.